Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, I'm Ben. And today we're breaking down the ultimate wedding photography gear guide for beginners, 2025 edition, with a twist. This is the Sony Shooters edition. I've been shooting weddings with Sony cameras for years now, and this guide is packed with real world tips and gear recommendations from the products that I trust and use on a weekly basis. If you're just getting started with weddings, then gear can feel extremely overwhelming. So today I'm going to walk you through exactly what you need to be able to shoot weddings with Sony gear confidently and professionally and without wasting money on stuff that you just don't need. Let's dive in. When it comes to wedding photography, your camera needs to be fast, reliable, and able to handle the ever-changing lighting conditions that happen at every single wedding, and not to mention all of those unpredictable moments. That's why I personally choose to shoot with Sony mirrorless cameras, and there is no way I'm looking back. So my top picks for 2025 are as follows. My main go-to body is the Sony a7 IV. It's got 33 megapixels, insane autofocus, great in low light, and has all important dual card slots. I personally carry two of these on me on my camera harness at all times at every wedding. The second camera I'd recommend if you're just starting out is a Sony a7 III. I used the Sony a7 III from its release date. In fact, it was the camera that made me finally switch to Sony from my trusty Nikon D750. This camera is still an absolute beast in 2025 and has some amazing features. And not to mention, it's now great value on the used market. The a7 IV is a sweet spot camera for many hybrid shooters. It's perfect for weddings, video content. As a second camera angle, it just does it all. Whether you choose to go with one of my recommendations or not, here are things that you need to look for when you're buying your camera body. Most importantly for me is dual memory card slots. Most modern Sony cameras have this as standard, but in my opinion, it's an absolute must-have. The other thing I love about my Sony is the real-time eye autofocus. Autofocus that just locks onto the eye of the person you're shooting, ensuring you get perfect focus nearly every time. And honestly, this is worth its weight in gold. Another brilliant thing about the Sony a7 IV is the battery life. Sony's Z batteries are absolutely fantastic now. They aren't the cheapest, but I would rather spend out on first-party options rather than third-party options where you get no guarantee over the battery life or how long they're going to last. The other thing I love about my Sony camera is the ability to customize so many buttons. I've set my camera to have back button focus and a few other custom controls that just make my life so much easier. And here's my tip for camera recommendations. If you're starting out, don't be afraid to buy used. The Sony a7 III is still more than capable, and it's an absolute bargain when bought used to what it was when it was released. You're getting a lot of camera for not very much money. So Sony has one of the best lens ecosystems in the game. Couple that with some brilliant options from third-party brands such as Tamron and Sigma, and there's no way that you won't be able to find a lens that would do just the job for you. Let me break down the ideal Sony kit for weddings. And these are the lenses that I actually use at every single wedding I go to. First up is the Tamron 35-150. This lens is absolutely incredible for wedding photography. I think if I could only buy one lens to shoot with at every wedding, this would be it. This lens lives on one of my camera bodies all day and I never take it off. It's nice and wide at the 35mm end and punched in at 150 produces some absolutely fantastic pictures. This is a really handy lens to have in your bag when you're shooting from the back of churches or for getting candid portraits during the reception. Sony have just released their competitor to this lens, which is the 50-150 f2, but at over double the price. I think as a beginner, I would still recommend the Tamron over the Sony lens. My other go-to lens is the Sony 24mm 1.4 G Master lens. This is my go-to lens when 35mm isn't quite wide enough. This lens probably spends about 80% of its time on my other a7 IV during the wedding day. And it's also the lens I use when I'm capturing any video for highlight films when I'm doing hybrid coverage. This is a GM lens, so it isn't the cheapest. But again, I bought mine secondhand. And doing it this way, it's not actually badly priced and the lens is absolutely stunning. My third lens is the 85mm 1.4 G Master. Before I got the 35-150 Tamron, this lens lived on my camera and I was rocking a 24mm and 85mm combo across my two a7 IV bodies. And believe me, it got me through a lot of weddings. The 85mm 1.4 is an absolute dream lens when taking portraits, and it produces some really nice out of focus areas in the background. It also comes in handy during dark receptions or church weddings, and I often use it when the 2.8 of the Tamron isn't quite enough to get enough light into the camera. If you are on a budget, the 1.8 version of this lens punches well above its weight, and I used it for a good few years when I very first switched to Sony. It's fast, sharp and lightweight, and at the minute it is a great price to get you into the 85mm game. My fourth lens is the Tamron 17-28 f2.8 lens. This one rarely comes out of the bag, but at 17mm it's saved me on more than a few occasions when I've been crammed in a tight space at the end of a church with very little room to move and nowhere to get back to be further away from the couple. It's also an excellent lens for establishing shots, either of venues or reception rooms all set up. Because of its wide angle, you can get a lot of space into one shot. It's a lens that I wouldn't like to be without, but it's also a lens that's maybe only used for 2 or 3 pictures during a wedding day, and sometimes, honestly, it's not used at all. But I always have it with me in a bag that stays on my back all day, just in case. Natural light is amazing, and it is how I will shoot 90% of my pictures during a wedding day. But there are times when you just won't have that option, especially during reception time or for the first dance. That's where your flash comes in. Here's what I use as a flash on my Sony cameras. First off, we have the Godox V1S, which is the Sony version. These flashes are fantastic, and I have a couple of them, one for each camera body. It has a round head, a magnetic modifier mount, it's TTL and HSS compatible, and it's absolutely perfect for bouncing flash around indoors. I will be doing a video at some point specifically on how I use my flash for wedding receptions, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out. So next up in my lighting setup, I always carry a Godox X Pro S trigger. This controls my off-camera lights, and you can change the power of more flashes than you will ever need directly from the top of your camera. It's easy to use, reliable, and lets you get extremely creative with how you light your receptions or your first dance pictures. Last up are the Godox AD200 2s. They're double the power of the V1 flashes and are absolutely fantastic at lighting up a whole dance floor for those dramatic first dance shots. As for modifiers, I only use the Godox MLCD15 flash spear. Pop it on top of your V1 flash for a softer light that is more evenly spread out. This works wonders for dark receptions and for wedding speeches. And here's a pro tip for you. Spend the time to learn to bounce your flash off of ceilings and off of walls. It makes your photos look more natural and a lot more professional. Now let's talk about the smaller things in my camera bag that make a big difference. First up is batteries. As I mentioned before, the Sony Z batteries are excellent, and I make sure I carry at least 3 batteries per camera. But honestly, I very rarely go through more than 2 in a day. I will say that as they get older, they do tend to fade a little bit, and I do need to change them more frequently, but I think that's the same with any batteries. But make no mistake, that is not the case when shooting video, but that's another one for another video. Next up is your memory cards. I like to use 64GB cards that are the UHS 2 versions. I don't like to use cards that are any bigger than that. Maybe it's just me, but I don't like the idea of having a whole day's worth of photos on one set of cards. Yes, I have 2 cards in both cameras, so there is always a backup. But if you lose your camera during the wedding day, heaven forbid, you've lost all of the photos. So yes, I have to change my cards more often, but I think the trade-off's definitely worth it. The brand that I prefer to use with memory cards is SanDisk. Don't ask me why, they were the first cards I bought when I very first started photography, and I've carried on using them. I use the Extreme Pro models now, but honestly, all of them are very good. As a cheaper alternative, the Lexar cards are also very good. I've used them personally on one occasion when I forgot my memory cards going to a wedding. Let's not talk about that one at the minute. And they are really a good budget-friendly option. The most important thing about memory cards is please remember to always shoot redundant so you have an on-site backup of any pictures that you take. Next up is my camera bag. Well, actually I carry 2 camera bags for every wedding, and they both have very different roles to play. Now I don't think there's any such thing as a perfect camera bag. Whichever brand I've ever gone with, I've always wanted something to be a little bit different. But the closest bag that I've found to perfect for my use anyway is the Lowepro ProTactic 450 AW. I'm still using the first version of this bag. There is a newer one out now, but I've got absolutely no reason to change. I think mine's about 5 years old and it still looks like new after a quick wipe down at the end of the day of a wedding. So this bag is the bag that holds all of my kit. 2 camera bodies, 4 lenses, 2 Godox flashes, a drone, and all of my accessories. You name it, it's in there. My other bag is just a sling bag. I can't remember the exact brand, but I will have it linked down below in the description of this video with everything else that I've spoken about today. I have this bag attached to my dual camera straps, and I carry it with me at all times. In this bag I will carry my memory cards, my spare batteries, my wide angle lens, and a few accessories for when I'm making any video content, such as my DJI Mic 2 or my DJI Osmo Pocket 3. I also carry my essentials kit in this bag. I spoke about that in a previous video, but it contains things like paracetamols, allergy tablets, safety pins, a pen, and believe it or not, some hairbands. You wouldn't believe the amount of times I've been asked for all of those things during wedding days over the last 13 or so years. This bag also holds a small bottle of water just in case of any dehydration emergencies. My other essentials, I like to carry things like a lens cloth and an air blower. I always have one of these on me. You never know when you're going to need it. I also have a few ND filters in my bag, more for when I'm shooting video, but I always have them just in case. The brand I like to use are the K&F Nano X filters. They're brilliant for sunny outdoor shots, long exposures, and obviously video content. As mentioned before, I also carry my DJI Mic 2 with me. If you record any type of video, this wireless mic is a must-have. Noise cancellation is absolutely fantastic for such a small unit, and I find the sound quality to be crisp and clear. Hopefully you will too, because it's what I've got attached to me for this video. The last accessory that I have with me is my camera harness. As I said, I always carry 2 camera bodies, so I needed a harness system that would support this. Mine is one that I actually bought from Etsy a few years ago. Not very expensive at all. I think it was about £50, and that was 7 or 8 years ago. So it's lasted really well. I bought it after losing a holdfast moneymaker, which, whilst really expensive, really is a nice strap if you want to treat yourself. Look, you don't need every piece of gear on this list to get started. I shot my first wedding with 1 camera, 1 lens, 1 flash, and a couple of memory cards. I wouldn't say that's the best way to get started, but it can be done. What you do need is to become a demon with the gear that you have, and you need to know how to use it to produce the best results that you can. So here's my advice. Practice at home in low light conditions. Get used to the ISO levels that your camera can handle before things start to get too noisy. Learn how your flash works and how to move between different modes quickly so you can change your settings at any time during a wedding day. Which leads me on to point 2. Set up custom buttons on your camera for speed and ease of use. I have my camera set up in a very specific way that allows me to get to the settings I need at just the touch of a button. If you would like a video on how I set my camera up to get the best results for me, then leave me a comment down below and I'll look at getting one done for you. I guess what I'm really saying is use your gear enough so that you don't have to think about it. You can just turn up to a wedding venue and shoot. And don't underestimate the power of good preparation. Charge everything, format all of your cards the night before so they're ready to go. Clean your lenses and load your bag the night before so you don't have to rush around in the morning just before you're due to leave. Most bridal prep starts early, which means you will be too. The main difference between amateurs and pros is details. Okay then, here's a quick recap of your Sony starter wedding kit. For your camera, look at an A7 IV or an A7 III if you have a slightly lower budget. I recommend starting with a couple of prime lenses. For example, I use the 24mm and the 85mm. The 50mm is also a really good option. And if you've got the budget, treat yourself to the Tamron 35-150. I promise you, you won't regret it. You need to get yourself a flash. Like I said, I use the Godox V1, and get yourself a nice dome to stick on top of it just to spread that light around evenly. And for your accessories, you want batteries, SD cards, something to keep your camera clean with, ND filters, and a nice secure harness to carry your cameras around all day. I've linked every single item that I use down in the description, all Sony compatible and all personally tested by me. These are affiliate links which help to support the channel at no extra cost to you. So let me know in the comments, what's in your Sony wedding kit bag and which is the lens that you reach for first on every single wedding day. If you got any value from this video, I would really appreciate it if you could drop a like and hit that subscribe button. And why not ring the bell so you never miss out on any wedding tips, gear reviews, or behind the scene videos. If you're still here at the end, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.